Okay, guys, hello, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for joining me. So today we are doing another interview. And you know that we do these type of interviews to basically get a different viewpoint of what success is. So I interview people who I feel are extremely successful. And today I have with me.
Hi, my name is Greta. I am a incoming 1L at Harvard Law School, so I haven't started yet, but I'll be starting in a couple months. I'm actually Danielle's former coworker at the Public Defender's Office. We were paralegals there together. Yeah, I'm really excited to be here and chat with you,
Thank you
Danielle.
so much. I'm so excited because you are a phenomenal person, but also like you are a phenomenal coworker. So I'm so excited to do this interview. Thank you so much. So we're gonna head straight into the questions. So you kind of gave like a brief introduction of yourself, but could you please introduce yourself and give us three fun facts about yourself?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, like I said, I'm Greta. I am an incoming 1L at Harvard. Before that, I went to Johns Hopkins University for my undergrad in Baltimore, and then I stayed around there for another year to work at the Public Defender's Office there. And yeah, I am left-handed. That's one of my fun facts. Danielle is one as well. That's how we are so good together as
Yeah.
coworkers. I also played the violin and trumpet growing up, so I still can play those two things a little bit, which is fun. And
Wow.
then my third fun fact is that I love baking, and I bake all the time for my friends and my family.
That's amazing. Oh my gosh, Greta, you're so amazing. Now, I do want to say Greta is like a phenomenal person. She's so like modest, but everything she's saying, like just times it times. We're going to basically talk about the definition of success and what success means to you compared to how society views success. So I would like to ask you, what is your definition of success? And how do you think society defines success compared to how you define it?
Yeah, I think it's hard not to be influenced by the societal definition of success, especially in the legal world where things are so driven by your job title, your salary, like
Yeah.
where you're working. Those are, I think, to me, the main indicators of societal success. And I guess you can broadly construe that for any career, any field of work that you're in. But for me, especially coming into law, and as I've been thinking about becoming a lawyer, I think success for me is putting myself in a position where I can help as many people as possible with the talents that I've been able to hone and work on in my leading up to law school and throughout law school. So that's kind of the place that I see myself at the end of law school. I don't
Hmm.
necessarily know which field it'll be in, what kind of job I'll be having, but as long as I'm in a position to help people with the talents that I've been able to hone, that will be success to me.
That's a great answer. Thank you for that. So, did you have any role models growing up?
Yeah, absolutely. So my parents are two huge role models for me. My dad is a lawyer, so it would be hard for me not to say him. He is a workers' compensation attorney, so it's a very different kind of law than the one I've worked in so far. But he did, come home every day and he would tell us what he was doing. He was telling us about the depositions he was doing and the court trials that he was participating in. And so it was really cool to have a role model in the legal field who could, give me an insight to that. My
Absolutely.
mother is a teacher. She is a high school math teacher, and she just taught me so much about like patience and, you know, being able to help others and using your talents to help others. She's done that her whole life. And so she's been a great model for that for me as well. And I was so fortunate to grow up with pretty much every teacher I've ever had has been wonderful and has been an insanely positive influence on me. But two that are very important to me was my fifth grade teacher, Mr. Hunger, who kind of
Hmm.
helped me develop my interest in law through
Hmm.
the things he was teaching us in class and through some activities he was doing. And he still continues to support me to this day, which is just so awesome. And then my other teacher, my English senior year high school teacher, Miss Alcorn, was just like so instrumental in allowing me to find a creative voice. She was my creative writing teacher. So
Okay.
that skill ended up becoming extremely useful in the law world, not only
Yes.
the work aspect, but also in the law school application cycle where you have to write about yourself and other things a lot. So those were some of my main role models.
Thank you, Greta. I appreciate that. Wow, so your mom's a high school math teacher?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I know.
Oh, I hate math. Oh my goodness. So
I was
kudos to
never good
her.
at it. Yeah, she didn't pass that gene on to me, so.
Yeah, she's amazing for that.
Mhm.
So you kind of alluded to this, but if you don't mind going like more in depth, why did you decide to go to law school?
Yeah, absolutely. So the main things that a lawyer does. Reading, writing, and arguing are three of my favorite things to do. I've done a lot of them in my time, and I especially was able to, I think, get better at those things in college, where I was able to do mock trial and I was able to do my own independent research projects. And you just have to write a ton of papers in college, so I was doing a lot of writing. So I knew that those were skills that I liked and that I was interested in honing. And I knew
Right.
that law was a career where I could, put those skills into use in service of that ultimate goal I talked about of being in service to others. So
Right.
that's a perfect marriage for me. And this is
Absolutely.
all, predicated on the fact that law, it's changing, it's evolving all the time, but most importantly, it applies to everybody. Everybody is affected by the law in some way or another. And I just thought that ability to be part of a process that is being driven towards improvement for the greater good all the time
Mhm.
is just really cool. And I wanted to be part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I can understand that. So please share what the journey to law school has been like thus far.
Long journey.
Oh,
I've
wow.
known I was interested for a long time, but the actual journey really didn't begin until I would say like the summer between my junior and senior year of college, which is when I
Mhm.
took the LSAT the first time. I did not do well on it the first time. I had spent a long time studying and I wasn't getting the results that I knew I could get, that I was getting in my practice exams. They weren't coming to fruition. So I took some time off after school. I graduated in December of 2022. So I had a month or two until I began working at the public defender's office. And then once I was done with school, I jumped back into the LSAT. And that was when I started to do a lot better. I switched prep classes, and I got the result that I wanted on the test, and I was able to be done with the LSAT. And after that, I was doing pretty much exclusive focus on my essays, my personal statement mainly, because every school
Mhm.
gets a personal statement. So I think I wrote it like 7 times brand new. I've there's so
Wow.
many iterations of it because I knew how important it was. So
Yeah.
when I was, finished with those essays and the LSAT and actually had submitted my applications, another one of the terrible downs of the ups and downs is waiting for months and months for law schools to get back to you. So it's just, I think in total, I finished applying in October and I got all my results back in February. So that's like a
Wow.
4 month span of just waiting for people
Yeah.
to get back to you. And it's very nerve-wracking. You're just sitting every day at your computer and that somebody could change your life. Like a school could give you a call or give you an email. So it was a lot of ups and downs, but we're here. We're waiting to go in the fall semester. So we're back on the up, I would say.
I'm
Yeah.
so proud and happy for you, Greta. What were you least prepared for along this journey?
Yes. I think part of my previous answer kind of gets to this is the hardest
Yeah.
part for me was having to get used to how many times and how many different ways you have to articulate aspects of yourself that you're not used to talking about. Like your
Yeah.
personal statement, that's your opportunity to kind of tell your life story and your story as to why you want to get into law school. And while you
Yeah.
might have your own internal thoughts about that, to speak that into words and to tie it to things that happened in your life and to your background and your education and your work is
Yeah.
really, really hard. And that's why I wrote it so many times. So I I had never really had to do like I think you do have to do a personal essay in college, but it is not necessarily as narrative about your own life and your journey
Right.
towards law. So I think that was definitely the thing that was most difficult for me. And now that I'm past that and now that I've done it, I'm really happy that I did because now
I,
it gives you a greater sense of self and a greater sense of purpose as to why you're going in. So while I wasn't as prepared for it, I'm very glad that it happened.
I totally understand. So just to circle back, as far as your personal statement, did you have people like review it? And if so, who were those individuals and why did you choose them?
Yes. Yeah, I had a couple people look at it. I sent them to my two professors that I asked for letters of recommendation from my
Mhm.
college. One of them was my former thesis advisor, and another was my German professor who I'd had for class twice. So they knew me very well as a student, and they knew my ambitions because we had spent a lot of time in class together. So
Mhm.
hearing from them was super, super helpful. It
Yeah.
was mostly like broad, top of the line feedback as to like the
Mhm.
themes of it because I had spent a long time on it at that point. A lot of it was just me kind of drilling and figuring this out. And then I have another person, my boyfriend, who I sent the essays to, who he was able to be as bluntly honest as he needed to be about whether they thought that my essay made any sense or whether it was the right direction to be going in. So I did have, I think there were the three that main ones that I did send those essays to.
Okay, thank you. And if you had to give any advice to anyone who is in the process of doing like their personal statement, what advice would you give to them?
It's a great question. I
Yeah.
I have I did the Seven Sage prep class. That was the law school prep class that I did, and they have a
Mhm.
module about the personal statement. I don't have it pulled up right in front of me, but that is what allowed me to crack it basically. It had like a 5 paragraph structure that broke down kind of what you should be doing in each paragraph. I think essentially
Um,
the gist of it was that the first paragraph should be attention grabbing, attention, it should really rope the
mhm.
reader in and be excited, make them excited to read more. And then the
Yeah.
second paragraph, you kind of give a little more detail about what you're describing. Third paragraph is when you kind of start to infuse your why law journey, and then it kind of evolves into that pretty much at the end. And that was the
Okay.
structure that I took, and it worked out very well. I think it worked out better than I could ever have imagined. So
Absolutely.
I would definitely recommend that as a concept. They did have some example essays in that
Yeah.
module that were very compelling to me. And it doesn't have to be like some shocking, crazy thing. Like my essay began with me talking about my first triathlon that I ever did. Um, because I had to kind of teach myself how to swim for that. So I kind of
Mhm.
described the process of learning how to swim and the nerves that I was feeling and learning how to like quash those nerves. And then eventually I was able to kind of tie that into some of the feelings I was having about my job at the public defender's office, where, it's a very nerve-wracking job. There's a lot of difficult aspects that are hard to grapple with, having
Yes.
life in your hands. So that's kind of the thread that I was able to pull through the essay. And that's my thread, but I think there's many different iterations of that that could work out for anybody coming from any aspect of their life.
Thank you. So you've alluded to this in many ways in the previous questions. So if this answer is shorter, that's totally fine. Can you please describe in detail the steps you took prior to being accepted into your dream law school?
Yes, definitely. So most of college up until my junior year, I was just focused on school, focusing on doing well.
Hmm.
Also focused on doing extracurriculars that brought me joy and that were helping me hone those skills that I described, like mock trial. I was on the student newspaper, their research projects, things like that. Um,
Hmm.
then that junior summer, and then the summer after was LSAT, really hunkering down and focusing on doing the best I could. For me, I did better while I was working and not having school in the background, and that's just how
Yeah.
it worked out for me. But I think people can find a way to succeed regardless. If you have time to take school or work off and just work on the LSAT, that would probably be pretty good. Um,
Yes.
I think everyone would like that.
Yeah.
So that was the next step. The next step after that was essays, personal statement, the supplemental essays where a lot of the times they have like a diversity essay where you can talk about your background if you have any unique aspects about your upbringing or your personal
Mhm.
identity. Um, and there are some other schools that have just supplemental essays about leadership experience or like hardships, anything else that you want to talk about. A lot of schools like want to have as many essays from you as possible so they can get a good sense of who you are. So I worked
Yeah.
on those. That was all kind of leading up to September. By the time the applications opened, I was like 90% there for
Mhm.
applying most of the schools I applied to. I
Okay.
applied to 15 schools, which I think is too many
Wow.
in hindsight, but at the time, you're like, I'm not getting anywhere. So it's fine to apply to however many you need. I was done applying by October, so I had all my decisions, like I said, at the end of February. So that period between October and February was just like waiting and
Yeah.
doing interviews when they did come up. I had 3 interviews total that I did. So that was the whole process basically.
What did your interviews, I guess, consist of?
Yeah, good question. One of them was a group interview. That was the Georgetown interview where you and I think it was 7 other students sit down with the dean of
Wow.
the school. Georgetown's a little unique. They're kind of the only school that does this, where the dean
Okay.
interviews every applicant,
Wow.
basically every applicant that he's interested in. So that was my first interview. It was sort of like a team bonding exercise, so it was a little bit different from a typical interview. But the other 2 interviews that I had for sit down interviews were Harvard and Wash U, which were very
Mhm.
similar. It was just like talking about, why law, all of those basic things that you'd expect from a law school interview, talking
Yeah.
about any aspects of your resume or your personal statement that they're interested in, all sorts of
Mhm.
stuff like that.
Um, I'm sorry. I thought you were
Yeah,
finished. Sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, I'm done.
Did you find that like you having time to work, like because you like was a paralegal for like a year roughly, or maybe a little over a year, did you find that was in your best interest, or like how do you feel like that played into your application process?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think I would have been nearly as successful in applying if I hadn't taken the time to work for a couple of
Mhm.
reasons. The first being that my LSAT wasn't good. I don't think I was in really like the mental space to be able to go right into law school after finishing undergrad. I think that would have been a bad idea for me.
Yeah.
So getting that time to just focus on the process and,
Yeah.
orient myself was super helpful. And for me specifically, working at the public defender, it gave me so much confidence that this is what I wanted to do with my life. And it allowed me to write a better personal statement. It gave me experiences to rely on and to draw from in writing it. And it
Yeah.
completely confirmed for me that this is what I wanted to do. So I totally recommend to anybody if you have the opportunity to have work experience, especially in the legal field. It doesn't necessarily have to be. A lot of people go to law school with no legal experience whatsoever. So that's completely fine. But if you do really want to test the waters and make sure law is what you want to do, I totally recommend doing that for sure.
I agree with that because it's not for everyone. Say that.
Exactly.
So your next question is, what are three things you wish you knew before starting this process?
Yes. The first thing I think everyone should, or what I wish I knew, was that every single person's journey into law school is going to look completely different. Um, Comparison is the thief of joy for sure. You cannot expect what's happening to somebody else to happen to you. You have to take it as it comes because it's such a random process. Sometimes you will get a different outcome from somebody who has the exact same numbers as you, and that will confuse you or frustrate you, or it might be good for you and bad for them, but that's just how it goes. You can't look into any of it more than you have to take it and, take it as it comes. So
Yeah.
that was definitely number one. The second thing is that it was going to take me longer than I expected to do this for myself. The journey was going to be longer. Like I thought it was going to be right out of undergrad and it wasn't. And I'm totally fine with that. And I wish I had known that that was going to be okay at the time because it really felt scary to not have a direct plan to go back into school. Um,
Right.
and then the third thing is that absolutely nothing is impossible, so you should not assume that anything is impossible because literally anything can happen. I was planning not to apply to Harvard because I thought there was no chance that I would get in. I thought my LSAT was too low. I thought there's no way, they have way too many applicants. There's no point in spending time on this because it's just going to be a no. And it wasn't. And I'm very glad that I decided to go through with that.
I'm glad.
So if there's a school you want to go to, apply to it because the worst they can say is no. If you don't apply, they can't even say that to you. So you have to try and you have to, expect the unexpected, basically.
Definitely. Now, if you don't mind sharing, do you want to share what your LSAT score was?
Sure, yeah.
Or okay, cool, cool, cool.
Yeah, I got a 171, which is it was a great score for getting into a lot of great schools, but it is
Mhm.
the 25th percentile score at Harvard, so that's why I kind of wasn't expecting to get in because a lot of the time the conventional wisdom is like you shouldn't expect to get in unless you're above the median or at the median. Like that's kind of the baseline starting point. And even then it's not a guarantee, but that's
Right.
kind of the realm of possibility. So, yeah.
So your last question is, what are three pieces of practical advice that you would give to aspiring law students? Um, and then you can mesh this all in together. And then also, could you please provide three books that you feel all prospective law students should read?
Yeah, I'm very excited about the last question, but I'll do the first one first. I think number one, above and all, I think 3 to 5 months is kind of the typical conventional wisdom about LSAT studying, and I totally agree with that. I think that's pretty much good as long as you
Mhm.
have that 3 to 5 months to dedicate it to yourself to it fully. I
Yeah.
think it might take a little longer if you are working or in school at the same time as studying. I don't think it's impossible to do that all at once because I did it and it happened.
Right.
But if you have time to devote just to that, that's pretty cool, and you probably should take advantage of that. Um,
Definitely.
the second thing is make sure your essays are really, really good because
Mhm.
they are the difference maker. If you have the same numbers as somebody, and a lot of the times at like better schools, you're
Mhm.
everybody who's applying has really good numbers. So the difference
Right.
maker is your essays. Like that is what's going to differentiate you from the next person and give them
Right.
an insight into who you are. And you really should take advantage of that opportunity to tell them who you are, especially outside of work or school, because they have your resume, they have your application where you describe all of those things. So tell them something
Mhm.
else about you that's not just work or school, which is
Right.
another part of that seven sage module that I looked at that really helped me frame my
Okay.
essay. Um, and the third piece, most important, if you're take anything else away, doesn't matter. This is number one. Do not place your self-worth in any of the outcomes that come from this process. The number doesn't define you, your GPA doesn't define you, your resume, the schools you get into, they don't define you. You're your own person. And
Yes.
that doesn't make you a better person. It doesn't make you smarter. Like there's so many aspects that go into this. You cannot place your self-worth into any of them. So
Oh.
the three books that I've been reading a lot in work and having the time outside of school, it's been fun to like recreationally read again. I wish I had read more at this point, but you know, I do what I can. Three books that I really liked. Two of them are about fields of law that I'm potentially interested in, and reading them while they weren't about, one of them was more about law than the other. They kind of hit on aspects of being a lawyer in those fields. The first one is called Wastelands. It's about a lawsuit that was brought against an agricultural company in North Carolina. It's kind of an environmental law book, and it was super, super interesting and super foundational for me in getting interested in environmental law and what that can look like. The second one is called Everyone Who Is Gone Is Here. It's a book about the border, the Mexico border, and the countries in Latin America. And I can't even really summarize this book adequately because it is fascinatingly written. It is written about so many different people who, you know, are part of that ecosystem of the border, like the people crossing, the people helping them cross, the immigration officers. It's a fascinating story, and it's really heartfelt. So I totally recommend that to anyone, especially if you're interested in like immigration law. The third book is one I'm actually not even done reading, but I'm enjoying it. So I'm going to put it. It's called Reading the Constitution, and it's written by Justice Breyer, the former Supreme Court justice. It's about his constitutional philosophy that he employed when making Supreme Court decisions. And if you're interested in constitutional law, there cannot be a better source than to read directly from a Supreme Court justice. So I really have been enjoying that one. And that is my third recommendation.
Oh my gosh, they sound like phenomenal reads. So thank you for that. Anything else you would like to add, like that we haven't gone over, or anything you can think of?
Yeah, I guess just like enjoy the time before school while it lasts. That's something I'm trying to do myself because it's coming to an end very quickly, and I know I'm going to eat my words when I'm in the library for hours drilling law school textbooks, but I'm just so excited about it all. So I'm really excited for anyone who's potentially watching this and wanting to get into law, because I think it's really cool, and we're very blessed to have this opportunity to participate in law in our country. So yeah.
I'd like to thank you so much, Greta, for doing this, because like I said, this is like, I think these type of conversations are needed just because some people may not have like a role model or someone they can go to. So it's really like inspiring to see people who are actually doing it, you know. So I want to thank you so much for your time and all of your insight, and your beauty inside and out, because you're a phenomenal person. Thank you so much. So if there's nothing else, we can end this. And I want to thank you again. And I hope you have the best time at Harvard, because I know you are.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, girl. Talk to you later. Bye. Thank you.
Bye.